Wow. Breaking news. Terence Bud Crawford's next fight is announced. It's being reported. Bad news. It's not Errol Spence. Do you believe me now? What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I am back with some more boxing. Let's talk about it. ESPN is now reporting, which is going to be very shocking to many. Terence Crawford and David Avanesyan have signed contracts for a welterweight title fight December 10th in Omaha. Crawford told ESPN. So this is not a rumor. Crawford did an interview or whatever with ESPN. It will be streaming on the streaming service Black Prime, BLK or MLK Prime, whatever. And they'll offer it on pay-per-view for $39.95. Crawford says, quote, "I was really looking forward to the Errol Spence fight," Crawford told ESPN. "I started communicating with boxing manager Al Heyman and PBC back in June, and unfortunately, they represent a fighter in Errol Spence who didn't want the fight as bad as I did." So Terence Crawford is blaming Errol Spence. Crawford will earn a career-high 8-figure payday for the fight, sources say. So Crawford is going to, I guess, earn his highest paycheck, higher than when he was with Top Rank. "I agreed to all of their bullish, and they've been dragging their ASS for months. Spence was nowhere to be found while I was trying to make the deal. I explained to Al Heyman and Errol Spence that I was going to fight before the end of the year. Since they want to continue to drag their ASS, I'm going to go fight another champion who actually has the balls to fight me. David Avanesyan is a very tough task. He's knocked out his last 6 opponents, and this guy is dangerous. Once I'm successful against Avanesyan, my plan is still the same, to whip Errol Spence's butt." Wow. Wow. Terence Crawford fighting David Avanesyan. You hate to see it. You hate to see it. Now, I think this looks extremely bad for Terence Bud Crawford. Now, I made a video earlier. Errol Spence had basically said, I could have fought in November. And basically, he's pointing the finger at Crawford, saying that I could have fought in November, but he was stalling. Another thing is, I made a video. There was a report from the boxing scene, and the information says the growing concern that on Spence's side, that Crawford's team isn't committed to the fight. And now we know why. The information from ESPN, Crawford did an interview with ESPN. I read the quotes. The link will be in the description. And he's telling you his next plan, and it's David Avanesyan. Wow. You know, you just, to me, I don't know. I don't, what is the David Avanesyan fight? That just seems so out of left field. He's fighting on BLK Prime for $40 on pay-per-view. That's going to flop. So I'm going to tell you, because I don't really have much positive to say about it. David Avanesyan is an obscure, unknown name. Crawford can try his best to make it sound like a compelling sell on pay-per-view, but it's just going to be so funny to see the people who hated on Deontay Wilder versus Robert Helenius and certain fights like that try to justify their need to see this. David Avanesyan has a record of 29-3-1, the Russian fighter, 51% knockout, and Crawford is being real. He did actually have, he has a bunch of knockouts in a row, but he was fighting non-real, like domestic level guys. I mean, I guess the biggest name he fought was a UK guy, Josh Kelly, and he beat him in fights with like Kerman Lajaraga of Spain. But, Crawford's like, oh, he's super dangerous and things like that. He fought whoever this guy is, Askari. I don't even know who this is. Some 15-0 guy that I've never heard of. I don't even know what he looks like or anything. And look, that's who he fought. Like, this is David Avanesyan's last opponent. Who is this guy? He has a 35% knockout ratio. Never seen him, never heard of him. He looked like the dude that shot Bruce Willis at the beginning of The Sixth Sense. I'm not familiar with him. Liam Taylor, again, domestic level UK fighter. Again, have you ever seen this guy? So, yeah, I mean, beating 6 guys by stoppage in a row, that's cool. But the best win is clearly Josh Kelly. But Josh Kelly's 10-0-1. So he's not a guy that was, he just had somewhat of a name, you know what I mean? Kerman Lajadaga, he was ranked. But again, this is a guy from Spain that wasn't a big name, you know? But on the losing side, he was stopped already by Mean Machine, a guy who Crawford actually fought and already beat. So what does this really do for Crawford's career? And in fact, speaking of David Avanesyan, I went to Broner. I covered Broner versus Granado's card. And David Avanesyan, way back then, fought Lamont Peterson in 2017, as you guys see on the screen. 2017, Lamont Peterson beat David Avanesyan. So David Avanesyan is just now fighting someone that Lamont Peterson, a guy that Errol Spence stopped. Lamont Peterson beat him. You ain't beat Lamont Peterson. Lamont Peterson beat David Avanesyan in 2017, right? Beat him in 2017. And he fought Shane Mosley and beat him, but this is like more of a shop-worn Shane Mosley. This doesn't do. A guy that's been knocked out by Mean Machine, lost to Lamont Peterson in 2017. You know, I guess the only part of the deal that kind of makes sense is just fighting in Omaha, because you can't really put this fight anywhere else. So you would have to go to his exact market to market Crawford versus this guy. And the other thing that doesn't look good for Terence Crawford is the fact that people have often suggested Crawford's welterweight run is not dynamic enough. And they're saying, oh, you know, Crawford, who's he fought at welterweight? A couple guys had names, but they were at back halves of their career and stuff like that. And to fight David Avanesyan, that doesn't really change anything. You know, you're fighting a guy who knocked out by Mean Machine, a guy you already beat, lost to Lamont Peterson, the guy Errol Spence beat, and the whole world wanted to see Errol Spence versus Terence Crawford. So to me, I think this looks extremely bad. Also, I think it's going to flop on pay-per-view. So how is that going to give Terence Crawford any type of leverage? So to me, I think for Crawford, another reason why it goes in his direction is Errol Spence fought earlier this year against Yordenis Ugas. He's a volume puncher, and everything I said regarding this fight is now playing out, right? I didn't see Terence Crawford really wanting to fight a volume puncher like a Errol Spence with the level of activity that he has had. Like, let's say he fought November 19th, right? You would be fighting Errol Spence, who has a fight this year, and he destroyed Yordenis Ugas' eye. He's already bigger and stronger than you. And he fought in April. I believe it was April when Errol Spence fought. And then he decimated Ugas, virtually winning every round. Crawford, on the other hand, has not fought since Sean Porter, a guy that's Errol Spence's leftovers. And Errol Spence had already beat when Sean Porter was a champion. Crawford's last 2 opponents have been Errol Spence, quote unquote, leftovers. Kell Brook, who Errol Spence beat in 2017, and then Sean Porter, who Errol Spence had dropped and beaten in 2019. Only difference is Crawford was able to stop him. But even the stoppage, a lot of people thought it was sketch. So it really doesn't do anything. I think it also shows that Crawford and his side did not want to go straight into an Errol Spence fight, and they want a tune-up. Because listen to what he's saying. He said PBC was dragging their ASS, but you're taking a tune-up. Errol Spence said, I could have fought in November, and you're fighting David Avanesyan. So how are they dragging if they've been waiting weeks for you to, which is what the report says, you guys see it right there, they've been waiting weeks for you to get back with them. And look how underhanded it looks. It comes out randomly through ESPN the day this article comes out. So the article says growing concern from Spence's side that Crawford may not be committed to the fight. And then that same day, Crawford announces he's fighting on Black Power Network or whatever it's called. And he's fighting against David Avanesyan. So I firmly believe Crawford, he knew he had 0 fights for 2022. So he wanted a tune-up. He wasn't going to go straight in there with Errol Spence. You can't really blame Errol Spence for that. Errol Spence, he already fought this year against Ugas. And then now he's been stalled out. So again, with Crawford saying that PBC and Al Heyman, they were stalling, and him basically saying the same thing Errol Spence's team is saying. Here's the difference. The reports are saying that Crawford had the contract with the revisions for long enough. They said they got February 4th open. The other thing is, with the fight like David Avanesyan, we know it's going to flop on pay-per-view. So it doesn't really give you any type of leverage to benefit you to resume negotiations. So to me, I think Crawford truly wanted a tune-up. The other thing that seems weird, he's blaming PBC and Al Heyman for dragging their feet. And Crawford thinks that he can just jump in and out of negotiations and just come back to the table when he wants. But who knows? Errol Spence and PBC may be done with Crawford. Errol Spence may say, F it, we wasted so much time. He's already said on Twitter, like, making 147 is not the easiest thing. And Devin Haney agreed that him making his weight class 135 is not the easiest thing. So Errol Spence may say, F it, I'm up to 154. So there's no guarantee that we actually get this fight even next, even if Crawford, who should be the favorite against David Avanesyan, even if he beats him. And if Crawford looked vulnerable versus David Avanesyan, I just don't understand the point. Like, I don't understand how, aside from a tune-up, and you wanted a tune-up before Errol Spence, I don't see how this benefits him. You don't got leverage because, again, Bob Arum said you can't sell. Bob Arum says your pay-per-view numbers are abysmal and they lose money. There's no way this fight is going to be a big pay-per-view draw. So he's going to have, I don't know who's advising Crawford to make these moves, but it just doesn't make sense to me. You work with the cartel leader, Daniel Kinahan. You wasted all this time negotiating with PBC only to fight David Avanesyan. And then now you're going to fight him in Omaha. It's not a big fight. It's definitely not a fight that's going to do blockbuster numbers. And then you think you're going to just pop back to PBC with what? Like, you don't have more leverage. Like, if you beat Virgil Ortiz, maybe somebody like that, you knock out Jaron Ennis or whatever, maybe you come back to the table with some actual leverage. But to beat a David Avanesyan, who again lost to Lamont Peterson in 2017 on the Broner Granados card, I just don't see what it does, me personally. But hey, that's the news. Let me know what you guys think. Who's at fault? Do you want to see Crawford Avanesyan? Will you pay for it on pay-per-view? Weird decision, but the cat's out the bag. Boom. Hit the QR code and subscribe. The future is now. The Hibernation 5s by Kenichi Bear. Hybrid gaming and lifestyle headphones. Out of the box, you can connect to any console or PC. Bluetooth ready with a low latency USB adapter, color RGB, and extreme bass mode. The Hibernation 5s adjust to you. Whether you need a gaming, travel, gym, or lifestyle headphones, the Hibernations got you covered. The new Hibernation 5s, link in the description. Customize the way you hear the world. Welcome to the nation.